What's up, guys? This is Chris. Welcome to our weekly podcast, In the Huddle, where we bring in current or former athletes to come into this huddle, into this space, and to tell their story, to talk about what God has done, what He's continuing to do, and what He will. Man, I'm super excited about today. Got Chandler Dale, former baseball player at the University of Louisville, but an incredible friend of mine. I love Chandler. So, man, thanks so much for being with us today.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me out. Excited to see what this has been and thankful to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, man, I've known you for a long time, but a lot of people just know you just in that window that you were there at University of Louisville. I know you're from Jeffersonville, Indiana.
Yep.
You played a couple sports at Jeff, right? How many sports did you play?
Just baseball, basketball, but I loved basketball. I just wasn't as gifted in that sphere. But that's how we connected. Was
That's
Coach
right.
Gilbert at Jeff. I'll never forget seeing you walk across the gym and being curious as to what you were about to do. But yeah, that was two sports at Jeff. That's it.
Yeah, that was fun time, man. And we'll talk about that.
Love it.
Grew up in Jeffersonville, Indiana. Great family. Tell us about growing up. Just about what was it like in the Dale house growing up? Just let us in your world.
Man, I have the best parents, and man, I remember so many good things about my childhood, and just the only word I can attach to it is just blessed. And man, my parents raised us to love each other and raised us in the church so that we could hopefully one day love the Lord, and all of us do. And man, there's so much that how they raised us and how we grew up that is like a blueprint for us to, my sibling, two out of my three other siblings already have children as well. So we're all just kind of running with some of the base foundation that my parents gave to us. And man, it was a home filled with love. I don't know how else to put it. Love and discipline. And it wasn't easy because we saw, I couldn't put these words to it then, but saw how the world lived then and how families lived then. And you just, you wanted it because it wasn't yours, and you wanted the freedom, or you wanted the other things. But they were subconsciously teaching us things that are just priceless nowadays. Yeah. So man, great family. My mom and dad are just two wonderful people, and two friends of FCA, as you know. Yeah. So just good people.
Yeah, and I had the privilege, and still have the privilege, of knowing your mom and your dad, and watching how they parented. You guys were just different, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, like, you coexisted with the world, but you were different. You stuck out, and I know sports were part of your world.
Yeah,
but it's like your mom and dad had somewhat of a balance. Like, hey, we're going to play this game. We're going to be all in.
Yep.
But however, this is not our God.
Yep.
And so you were able to incorporate your relationship with God into your sport.
Yeah.
At a very young age, man. Talk about that.
I remember my dad multiple times looking at me and pointing before we went to school or before we got on the field, and goes, "Son, you're a Dale, and because of that, you do things differently." But the what was behind that statement was, man, we don't talk back to umpires, and that's I remember fourth grade doing that once and just thinking I broke the 10 Commandments or whatever. It was like my dad just said, "Chandler, you're a Dale," and what that means is, I couldn't tell you what it meant at the time, but I could show you how he lived and how he behaved on the field as a coach, and how he was intentional and would kneel down to kids, not even his own, and show them, express to them love and do things. And so early on, man, it was even at a church league. I started playing at a church league, and you could just tell that there was this intentionality behind his love and care and coaching and parenting that trickled down to how me, my brother, sister, and how we were able to play and live. And I remember early on just having families over that were teammates' families at our house, and my parents established early on that, hey, our home is going to be a safe haven. It's going to be a place where, again, even at a church league, it's going to be a place where mission can be accomplished, where the love of the Lord is going to be extended through our time on a team. And I remember, again, third, fourth grade, just getting that and be like, oh, this is what it means to be a Dale. Mm-hmm. This is what it means to be in this family. It means you're in this family and you're a part of this world, to do it in a way that honors the Lord. Yeah. And then that just kind of bled into the rest of, going into middle school and high school.
Well, it did that, man. It did that. I watched you. I didn't know you in the earlier years, but as you started to get into, the middle school, high school, your name preceded you, and you caught those principles that your dad and your mom both instilled into you. And as you went into high school, I remember that was such a key part of the fabric of a team because you were a leader. Those biblical principles catapulted you in the leadership where, and you know what I'm talking about as far as like, you may not have been the best person on the team because of talent, very gifted athlete, but what set you over the mark and over the bar and where you deserved the right to be heard was more so of your leadership than your athletic ability.
Yeah.
You carried that throughout.
Thank you. I clearly remember two things happening at once, and I don't think it was a coincidence. My freshman year of high school, baseball it literally becomes a bigger game, right? You leave Little League and you get on a bigger field. It's just more difficult, and I was slower to develop and change to that aspect of the game. So therefore, I was a little bit behind as far as talent goes. At the same time was when the words of Luke 9:23 changed me from being a churchgoer to a committed follower of Jesus. So I remember being not in the starting lineup for varsity and only being in the dugout my sophomore year of high school. And it was like, okay, this is your time. This is your test to put what you're learning about following Christ into practice. And from that point on, it was never about my play on the field. It was how can I be a value add to my team and still do things that aren't necessarily going to help them on the field, and while simultaneously loving them and being there for them. And I have a friend right now who's walking with the Lord. He's a father to a wonderful child and another one on the way. He was not walking with the Lord while we were on team in high school, and he multiple times has said, dude, it was because of the seed you planted while you were in high school. Well, unbeknownst to me, kind of, again, connecting this timeline, that was my sophomore year when I was not playing. So, man, it's been cool to see. And I mean, as you know, and as we'll get into, my college career didn't pan out athletically the way I would have hoped to, but my baseline, my foundation was, let it be, man. Whatever happens statistically or athletically, let it be, because ultimately I'm a part of a mission that's greater than something that can be accomplished on the field. So that happened early in high school, and then I just ran with that. And thankfully, some athletic success ended up coming in high school.
Well, and it definitely did. It definitely did. Well, I remember just, you mentioned Chad Gilbert there with, coach at Jeffersonville High School. Yep. I remember doing chapels when Coach Broughton was the coach at Jeff.
Really?
So,
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah, Coach Broughton.
No
and then
way.
Jimmy Just and Chad Gilbert, and just kind of rode. And those guys would allow me to come in and share, 15 minutes or so each week. And, with your team especially, you get in there and you start building relationships, and just a week devotion where a coach will allow the players, if they want, to be part of that.
Yeah.
And very seldom does anybody ever not want to be part of it, because it's a team thing. You guys caught on to that. Anytime that you can bring athletics and, with my point, a relationship with Christ, the two coincide, man, that's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, that you can still play your sport and bring glory to God. So it was a great time watching you grow and develop in that. When did you realize, okay, baseball can kind of be a little, this is going to be my jam. Basketball's not going to be it. What did it look like?
That's a good question. I think probably earlier than I realized. But I mean, in my freshman year, for both freshman year of high school, I was varsity baseball and freshman basketball. So that was probably my first dose of reality.
Well, it even went back before that. I forgot to even mention the Little League World Series, man.
Yeah. And that was a key. That was a pivotal moment for many reasons, right? But like it was like, okay, your success is going to be, and athletically is going to be on the baseball field. But yeah, that was wild, and that just happened. The World Series just happened, so a couple people have brought that up, and it's been 16 years now. And that moment for me was my first year in a public like little city little league, and that was kind of a bedrock of relational foundation for me. And though athletically that was a cool moment, I now can see, man, more so than that, it was relationally and just propelled me into so many moments. I remember Coach Mack that was his first year at U of L, and then we went to the Little League World Series. Well, we had him come and speak at our table. This is actually a funny story. He came to speak at like a celebration banquet that we had in that winter to celebrate the World Series. He came and spoke, and I'll never forget. We're lined up, all kids, kind of on two different tables, and he's in the middle of us. And he finished his speech, and he said, and who knows, maybe one day you'll be playing for me at U of L. And he looked to the right, and I was right there. And, I kind of take that as motivation. Well, 2 seats away from me was Drew Ellis. So he's already given him the recruiting pitch. Oh, yeah. But here I am just kind of taking it, wide-eyed, just being a little kid. But
that's Williamsport, right? That's the big deal. It's not like it's a little side World Series.
No, we played 4 games on ESPN. And, I mean, it was culturally, even for me, I'm so grateful for that experience because from Southern Indiana, right? I'm as Midwest as Midwest gets, and then you're rubbing shoulders with kids from China and Chinese Taipei and Guam and Hawaii, and your world expands. And not to over spiritualize things, but to do so, it's like, oh man, I'm a little fish in a massive story, right? Massive pond. And that was huge for me as a 12-year-old to experience. So as cool as athletically that was, man, it was so rich of an experience.
Yeah. So that was started baseball early on, was like a love.
Yeah.
And then you have a stellar career at Jeff, as a pitcher, but also, man, you swung the bat. You didn't get to swing here at Louisville, but you got to swing.
It'll be on my. I'll tell him forever and ever. Drew and I's averages were very close as hitters in high school. So he may still be playing it and swinging it, but man, we were right there. Not to hit any home runs like he did, but yeah, man, I played every position, and I loved it. Loved it. And seeing now, we'll get to this later, but my boys, I have a 3-year-old son who's starting to swing it too, and I'm like, I'm not forcing anything upon him, but to see him willingly pick up a bat is pretty cool, man.
That's so good.
It's cool.
Yeah. So recruiting looks a lot different now than what it did.
Yes.
So obviously your great career at Jeff, but now you're starting to feel the waters of what recruiting looks like. Tell us what that looked like, because you're praying. You're fervently praying like, Lord, direct my steps. You got a lot of people in your corner praying the same thing.
Yeah.
Tell us how that went and why you chose what you did.
I had a very unique story. So all of high school, I had just assumed I was going to go to Bible college. Wanted to go into ministry, so I explored kind of 2 options. One, how can I do this and play a little bit of baseball, or do I just need to give up the game? And it kind of came down to, I guess I just need to give up the game and just go to Ozark Christian College, small Bible college in Missouri. I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. And then come senior year is when I took my physical leap, and I was always a really good player, always a really good pitcher, but then I became like, I actually might be able to go to the next level type of talent. And coach being right across the river from U of L, and having Drew on my team that was already committed since freshman year, the coaching staff came to watch Drew just because it was an easy, recruitment thing for them to do, and they saw me throw, and we started a conversation there, and then they saw me a couple more times and then offered me a walk-on spot, and it was weird in a way because I was confused because I determined my steps, right? Hey man, I'm going to Bible college. Then this whole piece that I felt like was from the Lord in regards to all of this U of L situation, I was like, what is happening here? And yeah, it just ended up working out to where I was like, and honestly, this is not a plug, but FCA was a massive part of that. Massive. I think just the wisdom I received of Chandler, you can go to play baseball at U of L, and though you may not be studying New Testament and the prophets in the Old Testament, you're going to be a part of a ministry where you don't just learn about ministry, but you're going to do it. And that's, man, I could not be, hindsight 2020, could not be more grateful for the Lord leading me where he did. And so it was, very late. I think it was May of my senior year. You should not wait that long to determine where you're going to college, but that's when it was, man. It was crazy.
Well, I love, because I got a chance to watch you, obviously, doing the chapels, being this close to Jeff, hearing, and Coach Mackey told me at the time, hey, we got a guy that we're looking at. He's gonna help us on the field. He's gonna help us in the locker room, but he's really gonna help FCA as a program. And it's always good to get athletes to come in that they know their purpose. Like, hey, I want to excel at my sport, but I also want to bring glory to God. And you've done such a good job and still continue to do a great job of loving the Lord with all your heart, but you can still go into places and spaces that you're not a chameleon that's going to, you can bring light into any situation, and you're not bringing whatever, maybe judgment, condemnation. You can love people where they're at and still not conform to them. How hard is that? I mean, because there's a lot of people that like, hey, I don't know if I can do that. Yes, you can. What's some of those tools that you always do and you apply? Hey, I can go into this situation knowing when I need to leave. Yeah. But I can also be really strong in that.
Yeah. I'll say this. I've failed at that before multiple times, even in college, right? And I'll get to that in a second. But, it's the verse in Paul that Paul said, I'm going to forget the location. It's in one of the Corinthians, but it's become all things to all people in order to win them for Christ. I was always drawn to that because I felt like I was able to meet a lot of different people in a lot of different walks where they were at and be able to love them in that moment. And man, I think that was why the Lord had me go to a place like U of L, because he could leverage that for his kingdom. And there were times where I lost my way. And there were times, Chris, I don't know if I've ever told you this. There were multiple times. I remember freshman year, following the Lord strongly, going to college parties with my pals just to hang out with them. And then some people would recognize me as, hey, you're the FCA guy, aren't you? I'm like, yeah. And, and being proud of that, being in those locations. I remember other times in college where I am partaking in the parties as well. And they're telling me with a different tone, hey, you're the FCA guy, aren't you? And I'll never, those are very powerful moments for me of honestly guilt and shame. Not from the Lord, but just
even talk about that. Like how do you like there's grace in the Lord. Yeah. That you don't want people to become followers of Chandler. Yeah. And so there's been many times where you can really capitalize on that. And yes, it's convicting to you, but it's also a great segue to a friendship and a relationship with someone that might not know that.
And even the Lord uses that, right? Even when I'm in a moment of personal failure, of sin, like, man, those are the moments that I think the Lord can truly leverage if you let him. And I think I remember those moments of though I may be feeling that guilt and the shame, what's happening is the Lord is writing a story that's going to be even more usable, right? Even more transferable to someone who hasn't walked a quote unquote clean life or a pure life. And to step into that and to step into honestly your testimony, right? We talk about that with FCA all the time. Like your testimony, I remember my freshman year at college, getting up and giving my testimony. And man, there wasn't a lot of dirt. There truly wasn't. The more I grew, the more I grew up and matured. Not only did I have more dirt to share, I was more confident in that to share because I knew the Lord was going to use it. And man, I'm on the receiving end of grace being greater than whatever I've done, and allowing the Lord to use it so that He can call His sons and daughters back to Him. Yeah. So yeah, man, it's a fine line, because being all things to all men, meaning you may be in the world, but be careful to not become of it. So I think that's always a learning, growing process. And there's different seasons to that too, where, in college, it's very easy to define what is of the world, right? Hey, stay away from parties, stay away from sleeping around, stay away from, whatever, right? That's very easy to define. As you get older and know that, that stuff's just exhausting and not going to do it for you anymore, right? There's different levels and different disguises of being of the world. I think the enemy is great at those pitfalls. So I think there's growth and part of that too.
Well, I mean, yeah, and Paul says, that I see as Paul grows in his walk with Christ, the more he's understanding his need for Jesus. And I can so much relate with that.
Yes.
You get older and like, oh, wow, I need more of God today than what I did yesterday.
Yes.
Because you're more aware of my own sin.
Yes.
My own sin, and it makes me so much more appreciative of God's grace and His favor that He places upon me, that He allows me still in my wretchedness to be part of His family.
Yes.
And so you yes, whether that's been the high parts or whether that's been the low parts, to become centered in who you are in Christ. And I'm sure you being raised, and myself being raised in a Christian home, somewhat you're still grabbing onto mom and dad's coattail, Christianity, and really not, hey, this is my own. This is my beliefs. This is who Chris Morgan is. This is who Chandler Dale is.
Yeah.
And so those are key moments. Man, you were at the University of Louisville at a great time to play baseball.
Yeah. Yes, I was.
And great time to be a student athlete.
Yes.
All sports, really. But especially with baseball, you played in two World Series?
One World Series. I came in after one. So 2014, we went to Omaha, and that's when that fall is when I started. So I got to get excited and get motivated after seeing the crew before me go, and then my last year in 2017 got to go to Omaha. Talk
about that, man. Talk about experience at Omaha.
Honestly, what made it even better and sweeter were the first 2 years of the heartbreaking ways that we lost those two super regionals, right? And man, I don't even want to bring them up, but going to Omaha in that third year with a team that arguably wasn't as talented as the first two seasons, right, was amazing, because it was our class. It was the junior year who were, as well as many of the seniors that were fantastic, but it felt like this is our moment to seize, and to be a part of something as special as that was amazing. And the even thinking back to those moments, those locker room, as fun as the dog piles and the games are, and seeing those highlights are awesome, the sweetest thing to look back on and reflect on is the grind beforehand, and the things that nobody sees that you got to, the battles between your brothers of spurring one another on in the off season, or during the road trips that are just monotonous and difficult, right? Those are the things that it's special, and ESPN can't capture that. But those are the moments where I really fondly look back on and just have a lot of gratitude for that, and the culture that allowed those to thrive, right? With the leadership of the baseball team, with Coach Mack, and the flavor just the foundation that FCA is a part of, what Coach Mack wanted to establish. There's just no coincidence that good things have happened and are going to continue to happen. So.
Yeah. Well, that class, it seems like all of the baseball is close, just like other sports. But in particular, your all's class and your all's guys are really close, and still staying in contact. I see pictures of weddings. I see some weddings that you're doing. The relationships built. There's a great continuity.
Yes.
And team. Just that carries on through your life. You don't. Once you graduate and you put the glove down, you put the ball down. It's not like game over.
Yep. Yeah. I think now that's why I'm really hopeful my kids play sports, because it's not about the athletic things, right? It's about the relationships that can be created from that. And yeah, I mean, I talked to most of them. I mean, we're in a fantasy football chat right now. Like, hey, when can you guys draft? Right? It's like,
who's better, LeBron or Jordan? I mean, that's a go-to.
As you know.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Adam Wolf and Cade McClure.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh man. Yeah. So it's awesome, man. The relationships are special, and yeah, it's just because you get battle tested, and not to compare it to going to war because it's not even anywhere close, but to spend that much time doing something that's difficult it just builds really strong bonds with heart to heart, but the physicality, the emotional stretch. It's sweet, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, the sports teach you incredible things, but it also gets you and prepares you for hard things.
Yeah.
Whether that's been, you mentioned some of the victories. When Coach Mack was on, he mentioned some of those defeats, with those home runs and super regions. He mentioned those.
Yes.
Those are some devastating times. As an athlete, you kind of live, that pressure is a privilege.
Yes.
That you want that pressure. You've continued that throughout your life, and you graduated in how many years did you graduate?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Now that's like, I've never heard that. How does that happen? How does that work?
I didn't have a summer. Either of those college summers, it was like 21 college classes taken or 21 credit hours. It was nuts. Now in the day, the only reason I did it was because transfer portal wasn't a thing. If I wanted to transfer, I'm sitting out a year. So like, well, that doesn't make a ton of sense unless you go into, whatever. So there was a reason behind it, but man, it was hard.
But hard things is what I'm saying. Hard things, and also me as being someone was FCA, you look at somebody, because if you don't watch it, sometimes Christians can get kind of like a title as being the ones that never play, that never take on hard things, that are nonverbal, that are just really soft people. Yeah. And it really upsets me. So when you see a guy that wants to excel, wants to be the best, does hard things like graduates in 2 years, but you've kept that theme. You graduate and you step into hard things. The real world is not easy.
Yep.
It's not easy, but it helps when you have an incredible helpmate.
Yeah.
So, I want you to talk about Lily. How long have y'all been married? Talk to me a little bit about marriage.
We're coming up on 5 years of being married together. And we have both. Lily's she has also tried and true as far as her ability to make it through hard things. And I told you my childhood was on the easier and blessed side, right? So it was like I wasn't as tried and true as I would have wanted to be. So to be able to step into college and do hard things, become someone who can endure, absolutely. Coach Mack always says, "Hey, we're here to prepare you for life." You don't know what that means until you know what it means. And man, to be able to, when you have nowhere to go, you always talk about in Proverbs. I think or maybe I can't remember where the verse is, but it's woe to the man who falls and doesn't have anyone to help them up. Yeah. Well, I remember always quoting that verse as, maybe, hey, focus on finding somebody who can help you up. That's a great thing to focus on. You also need to realize that verse talks about, hey, you're going to fall. You are going to fall, whether that's on your own accord or something you can't control. You're going to be on the ground and you're going to need some help. And man, I've been there too many times now as a been married for 5 years, and the emotional and relational difficulties of figuring out how to be a husband and learning how to do it well and learning where I can grow tremendously. Man, I've been on the ground and I've needed someone to help me up. And now as a father, it's kind of the same thing. But yeah, Lily and I both 5 years married now, and we have been through storms as most people have been. Sometimes ours feel stronger than others, but we are continually learning what it's like to follow Jesus, to love one another, and make it through each day. And I'm not always great at being a husband, man. I'll be honest with you. I'm emotionally, I can be, in my season of life, I can sometimes come home, be exhausted, and unplug, so to speak, right? Just be relationally distant. So she's checking me on that. She's like, hey, man, I know you're having a long day. I'm with the boys all day long. I need you. We need each other. And we had that conversation last night. And so yeah, 5 years now of marriage, and even though our story is unique, and what I can say is the Lord has been near to us, and the Lord has been good to us, and yeah, He's showing His grace and mercy in ways that we wouldn't have been able to understand if it was just smooth sailing.
That's so good, man. That's so good. You've always been very good at being on good teams, and whether that's the League World Series,
right.
Jeff, University of Louisville, marriage.
Yeah.
That commitment's not commitment till it's tested, and so when things are tested, you know what kind of team you have.
Yeah.
Same way with marriage. Marriage is never easy. And if anybody tells you that marriage is easy, don't listen to them. They lie. Don't ever take advice from them again. But seeing how you love Lily, even in your imperfections,
Yes.
even in hers, that together you all make a good team for the Lord.
Yes.
And a good example to look that your boys see in that. And that's a great thing to have. So you leave college. You go into ministry, like you say. I mean, so you're working at one of the biggest churches in the world.
Yeah.
You're there how long?
5 years.
5 years. So you're there for 5 years, and then now and that's so. I mean, it's great that you can realize you don't have to just do work. You don't have to be on church staff to do ministry.
Yep.
And so tell us what that you're in church, still in church, but not working as an employee for the church.
Yep.
And now you're doing something else. Catch us up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely. So that moment where I was confused by the piece of, hey, Lord, why are you leading me to U of L? I think what He was ultimately doing was saying to me, Chandler, my path for you is going to be unique. Trust me, follow me, and be faithful for wherever I lead you. So after 5 years at the church that we still go to, man, we love our church. We jumped into the world of real estate, and are selling homes now in the area. And this sounds almost too easy to use as like a banner or a mantra, but the thing that really stuck to me as I took that leap away from working at the church was the fact that Paul was a tent maker, and Paul worked to supply and to support his own ministry as well. And I just felt peace in that. And I felt the Lord leading me this way. And again, like I said, it was confusing why this was peace, right? This doesn't feel like the path to someone who, felt led to ministry. But man, living a life on mission, as you said, almost is more effective, some would probably argue, outside of the walls of vocational ministry. And I think, people in ministry should stay in ministry if that's what they feel led to. But for me, it was not. In this season, it's jumping into something else, and the opportunities, man. And this is where it's beautiful. There's not a way in this world I would have been able to sit across these tables with people, be in these homes with people, if I was still in vocational ministry. So the Lord is using and planting seeds, even when it's in a different avenue, a different way. Yeah. So it's been really cool to see the Lord continuing to use this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Bible says, whatever you do, do it with all of your heart as working for the Lord, not for man.
Yeah.
And so ministry still hasn't stopped for you.
Yes,
correct. It may look different, but when the FCA guy comes in, they almost expect, even if it's not going there, they're kind of expecting a quoting of a verse or, hey, this is what God is doing on our campus.
Yeah.
From the real estate agent, some may not understand that. My mom is a real estate agent, so I know how you can conduct your efforts for the Lord and sell homes, because people want someone like yourself to sell them homes.
Yep.
They want somebody that's going to work hard.
Yep.
They can trust someone that's going to take care of their family. So all of those qualities and characteristics of a godly person are still in you. So for you to be able to do that, I don't even like to say secular, because it's not a secular. It's just living your life the way God has called you to be.
Amen.
And people will.
Yeah, when I left church, the last message that I gave, I'm through tear-filled eyes, I'm telling middle school and high school students, hey, I'm always in your corner, right? I remember saying that. And then just last week, I had a couple helped sell their home, and they don't follow the Lord. And they kindly put a Facebook post thanking me and saying, we knew he was always in our corner. And I was like, I got chills thinking about it. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, this is something, there's something here that the Lord is using, is going to continue to use. So for however long, I'm going to be faithful to it. And yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, well, you mentioned your boys. As you said that marriage has taught you a lot of stuff. I'm sure parenting has taught you some things too, good and bad.
Yes,
some things. Catch us up on your boys.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah, Harvey is 3, and man, he is everywhere all the time. And Henry is 1.5 almost, and he's our chill dude. And man, it has been an absolute joy. I remember there was a book, Matthew McConaughey wrote a book about his life, and this was I was reading it 1 week before we found out we were pregnant, and he wrote in one line, I'll never forget it, he said, the only thing I ever knew is that I wanted to be a father. And I was like, man, I feel that. I resonate with that. Then come to find out we're actively pregnant, and then since then been 3.5 years of figuring out what the heck does this mean? Right? And I'm so early, but man, I'll tell you this, with Harvey, I was learning how to be a dad, right? I'm learning how to change a diaper, how to do the dad things that I have to do to keep a human alive. With Henry, the second one, there was a different weight to it. And I felt like I needed to learn, as the Lord telling me, hey, you need to learn how to be a father. You need to learn how to steward their lives, right? It's not about survival. You'll figure that out. It is about how you can help them thrive in this world that's never been more broken, and where they can know their identity as a child, so that hopefully they can root it in the Lord. And it was weighty with Henry's arrival. It really was, because it was like, oh, here we go.
Well, that's so good. That's so good that you mentioned that. So take that statement about to steward them well and parent them well. How there may be people that are watching. Okay, what's that look like, man? I'm just trying to get my kid to go to bed at time, and I'm kidding. Like, you want to steward them from a godly perspective. What does that even look like?
Well, I'll tell you this: it is my current challenge, not my accomplishment. I have not achieved it yet, so I am a work in progress as far as how to steward them well. But I'll tell you, man, my parents. One of the things is we want to raise them in the faith. Only thing we can do are the things that only we can do, and the only things that we can control. We're in church every Sunday, and it's a habit to them. They know which room they're going to. Henry even just got moved up to the toddler room, and it was like it was a big deal for him. So, man, stewarding, that seems cliche and seems too simple, but I think it's the simple thing that we're going to do. We're going to raise them in the church as well as we can. And the things at home, man, it's my Harvey knows. He says, pocket, Dad. When I'm on my phone, he's saying, pocket, put it in my pocket. You're with me. And I'm learning and growing on how to do that well, but stewarding their life, man, I want them to raise good children as well. I'm not just trying to raise them. I want them to have what my parents gifted me. And that was a foundation that I could build a house on. And that was the Lord. So in order to do that, it's the 1,000 paper cuts, right? It's doing the small, tiny little things that I'm growing and I'm trying to be more aware of. But that's our stewardship plan.
And those mean a lot. And those small things are sometimes the most important. So those things that you gave us, those we can all do those.
Yes.
Like taking our kids to a church. It's not saying that we're delivering the message.
Right.
It's just, it's not what is taught, it's what's caught. Hey, this is where we're going.
Yes.
We're going, and we're going to honor God with that. Yep. And then home, as simple as putting the phone down, that seems like a hard thing to do. And it may be, but there's going to come a point in time where your sons, my daughters, will quit asking us to put the phone down. And that's a sobering thing of the opportunities that we have right now to really engage with them, because if we don't engage with them, somebody else will engage with them.
Absolutely. I'm not a huge goal guy. I'm hoping to become more of one, but my one goal in life is to be on the other end of the phone when something terrible happens with my son's life. Because it's not an if, it's a when. And I want to be someone who he can trust and who he has that bridge of relationship with, so that I can not be the only one, but one of the people that help them whenever they fall. So that goal can only be accomplished by being present now, by putting my phone in my pocket, like my boy says, and by hopefully building a trust, faith-filled relationship with them.
Yeah, and you mentioned that phone call. Now my daughters are older.
Yeah.
And so to be able to get, I've received those calls.
Yes.
And as hard as you hate to hear anything that's going on. It could be as small as, hey, I failed a test.
Yeah.
Or he broke my heart. And then you just want to go kill somebody. But not really. Kind of.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
But no matter what the situation is, that she is actually calling me. She wants me to be part of those. And there's a lot of times I failed, maybe, and didn't put the phone up.
Yeah.
Or I wasn't. But there were more times that I did.
Yeah.
And so I continue to not perfection, but progress.
Yes.
Keep progressing. And you mentioned that you want to see your kids be great fathers. Man, I love hearing that, because it just doesn't stop with you. It's continue to go. And I know I've heard you say many times that your grandpa was a huge influence in your life. Tell us a little bit about honor him.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for asking that. My papa Harvey, that's why we named my son Harvey. So Harvey means battle worthy. And my grandfather embodied that. He grew up poor. He grew up with no father. He grew up with a speech impediment. He grew up 25 years into his life, he had leukemia. It felt as if every step of his life was a battle. And he made it through, man. He was 30 years old and he was given 3 months to live. If you do the math, he beat that, because I got to build a relationship with him. And my grandfather is a hero of mine. And when he passed, you learn so much when somebody like that passes for the first time. And for him, it was his leukemia was coming back. He didn't know that. So when he passed, man, it was the first time I could see the Lord's protection, and the Lord's love and kindness through something really difficult. And so he his name was Floyd Harvey, and the battle worthy thing was what we wanted for our son. And my wife wasn't too fond of that name to begin with until we were in the hospital room holding him. We didn't have a name for him yet. And I looked out the window and I could see the street corner that was 2 doors down from his house. There was a little locksmith right there, and I could see that. And then we decided to name our son after him. And him, just now, as a 3-year-old, man, he chooses some battles he probably shouldn't be choosing, but he's a warrior, and I'm praying that he continues to embody that.
Test it, man. Yeah. That's well, your name means something.
Yeah,
so
it does.
Well, hey, man, I don't even need notes talking to you, man. That's kind of like I love what God is doing. One of the questions that we always ask, and I'll, as we wind down on our time, and I've noticed as I ask this question, it can be different answers in different seasons of my life. But who would you say that Jesus is to you?
This is going to sound really cliche, because you go through these different depths and maturity, and you try to put something fancy on something, or a fancy label. Man, for the past year, I would say Jesus has been my Savior again, and I'm okay with that simplicity again, going back to just the roots of why I fell in love with him to begin with is, hey man, here's my brokenness. I have no idea what to do with it. And that's been true for the last year. So yeah, I think similar to the disciples and their transition, right? It was, hey, follow me. Hey, you're a disciple. And hey, then now you're friend. I feel that too, but also I'm at the point where I'm okay with just saying the Sunday school answer of, man, Jesus is my Savior, and I needed and will need, but right now, man, it's been true, and it's been a gift.
Yeah. Well, dude, I love you. I'm proud of you.
Love you too, man.
It's a joy to watch you grow into the husband and the father and the continual believer in Christ. And man, just I can see now how Paul writes some of his letters and say, I'm overjoyed to hear of your faith. I thank God every time I remember you.
Yeah.
So there's been moments that as we've been here for a long time, 20 plus years, that you see athletes just come through the program and then just grow and grow up. And man, when you get somebody like yourself, there's many of them. I hate to mention names because there's so many of them, but to just see you continue to grow, just know I'm in your corner, brother, and I love you. And I'm super proud of you. Thanks for coming on and talking about you, but really, as always, kind of deflecting that glory to God. And
always.
Do, so.
Thank you, man, for your tree of faithfulness. And I mean, yeah, speak for all of us that have been touched by you and Tammy, and we would not be here, literally, but would not be here without you. So thank you.
Yeah, well, love you, buddy.
Love
Thanks
you
for
too,
coming
brother.
on.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.